Assalamu alaikum viewers. Welcome to today's lecture on the political and literary background of the Commonwealth period in English literature. This fantastic era spanning from 1649 to 1660, as I have wrote on the whiteboard as well, and this age was marked by profound political upheavals and flourishing literary landscape. In this era, we'll have to tell some characteristic that I have write on the whiteboard as well. As we have discussed before, the Commonwealth period, Caroline Age and Charles I was the king of the England at that time. So in this period is also called interregnum period as well. In this period of interregnum, I am going to talk about famous prose writer, famous poets, and one of the greatest, John Milton. John Milton, basically his work plays his name in forefront of English literature as we know it. But before going throughout, I'm going to tell you about some historical background of this age. So, as I have wrote on the whiteboard, the Civil War, first characteristics. So, how Civil War happens and who were behind it and why it has been happened. As we all know that in the Caroline age, Charles I was beheaded. In the whole history of English literature, the only one king who was beheaded in the literature in the history. So, who basically was behind it? Oliver Cromwell was not the king, but he ruled on England, and why he was gathering an army and battle against Charles I and behind him. So he beheaded basically the king. This era, basically 1649 to 1660, this was basically the age of the, we can say, age of republic or a period of republic. In this era, there was no king. Oliver Cromwell was not the king but Lord Protector and head of the state. So this period, when Civil War began till 1660, is known as interregnum period as well. This is why this period is called interregnum period. It was the period when the British Empire was republic, not democratic, only republic. You should know about this. That's what is basically republic and what is the democratic. Republic means that when the power is in the hands of individual citizen, while democracy is something that law which is for majority of the people, and the government which is for the people, of the people, and mm, by the people. So democracy and republics have not the same. These have the differences. So this age was basically republic age at that time. Civil war was happening in this era. This period is like earlier two periods, belongs to the Puritan age as well. This is the period when there was no monarch in England. After the death of Charles I, Oliver Cromwell, the Puritan leader, came to power. He died in 1658 when his son Richard Cromwell became the ruler of the England. So he ruled England till 1660. In this period, Puritanism became gradually unpopular. The English people realized that the monarchy was essential for them, so they decided the kingship and they started a civil war between the leader and the people. Then the people of that England realized that now we need a kingship. Basically, when a king rule on the every era or on every place, so the kingship is like that there is no corruption as compared to the democratic government. As we have facing a lot of in a lot of country, the kingship country is basically not facing as much problems as compared to the democratic country. Literature during the Commonwealth period was heavily influenced by the prevailing political climate, and with the monarchy establishment, writers began to engage in bold experimentations and critical thinking. They were not as much bold to share their own thoughts and their own experiences, so they were become limited at that time. So the Civil War was happening in this age. Puritan influence. Basically, in this era, Puritan values and religious themes became prominent in literature and were emphasizing moral and religious virtues in the writing. So, Puritan influence was there at that time. During the Commonwealth, Puritanism held significance in England. Puritans emphasized moral purity and simplicity, advocating for religious reforms as compared to romanticism or these type of things. So this religious influence is evident in the literature of this time, and writers graved with themes of virtue, pity, and religious devotion. So the writers have some of the main theme that writers should work under these influence and under these Puritan influence. So Puritan influence was there in the literature of that time on England. Suppression of theatre. Suppression of theatre means that the government exercised strict some censorship, resulting in limit creativity and emphasizing on the work promoting Puritan ideals. So, suppression theatres means a Puritan rule led to the closing theatre in 1642. In 1642, you should notice the exact date, and banning at this 1642. Sorry. In 1642, they banning stage plays. The Puritans considered theatre as a morally corrupting and ungodly. So, this suppression influenced their literary outfit as well, and leading the literature to shift from drama to other literary forms such as prose and poetry. Means they closed the theaters and they started the strict rules on the literary work, and the writer should write something moral, something virtuous, something religious. So they suppress the theater. So as we know that the drama means that to act or to perform. So basically at this stage drama were closed and the theater were closed. On the theater only prose and theater were basically closed, and the writer only started to express their literary feelings or to express their way to write something, only were limited towards prose or poetic. Metaphysical poetry has been promoted in this era as well. Metaphysical poetry, which had already gained popularity during the Elizabethan age as well and Jacobean eras, as well as I have discussed it in the previous videos as well. So continues to flourish during the Commonwealth period as well. Basically, this style of poetry, characterized by its intellectual and philosophical themes, metaphors, and unconventional use of language, was embraced by poets like John Donne and George Herbert. So, metaphysical poetry has been promoted in this prose dominancy were basically in this era, and religious and political writing. Now the literature become religious, and only political issues were discussing in the literature. How religious theatre, sermons, religious poetry flourishing, reflecting the prevailing religious fervor. So all the religious reflections were there in the literary work. prose. Like so Prose and religious writing flourishing in the commonwealth period, particularly in religious writing. The puritans belief and emphasis on spirituality lead to the publication of numerous sermons, so tracts and theological theories. So some notable figures of this era include John Milton, John Bunyan, and Thomas Hobbes. So these were some writers, some major writers that they write under the religious and political. So in this era, basically, emotions were not there in the literary work. We can say that they were only they were suppressed. Basically, they were suppressed in this era. If we think about religious and political writing, I will give the example of this John Milton's Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost is an epic which has been wrote by John Milton. So Paradise Lost and Hobbes' Leviathan. So these works explore theologically and political ideas reflecting the both. So all these in Commonwealth field, basically the literary terms and themes from this era influence, such as the restoration and the date was basically. In simple, we can say that in Commonwealth period, the English literature was a time of religious and political field that had a profound impact on the literary landscape. Writers grabbed with the Puritan ideals, uh, produced influenced metaphysical poetry, and engaged in religious and political discourse. So the banning of the theatres led to a shift in literary forms, and the writings from this era continue to be studied and appreciated for their insight into complex and transformative period in the history. So basically, the rules and the terms and the condition of this age put the writer to write something under the censorship. Means some rules were there that they should only write in this form. So this was the characteristics of the Commonwealth period that was in between 1649 to 1660, and these were the characteristics of this age. So I have told you. Still, I'm going to present the whole ages video. If you have any confusion regards this video, so you can write it in comment as well. But before that, I'll have to tell some summarized summary of this era. That Commonwealth period in English literature was the time of remarkable transformation derived from the political and intellectual exploration. It provided basically the literature that were in between politics and religion. So we should know that this era is basically were highly influenced under the Puritan age as well, and some literary work that has been happened that was only in the form of metaphysical poetry, prose, and epic. That was we can say that in the form of poetry or long poems. Thank you to tolerate my video, and still if you have any suggestion or any question regards this video, so you can write in a comment as well. I'll have to explain it more.